this is part 3. Just before we finally write some code, I would like to once again through what we've been through in the previous video, and hopefully I'll be able to explain a bit more clear why we have made some progress in the previous video. So let's see where we left off. First of all, we have added run all timers at the end because it will ensure that promises are not all of them resolved before even doing the assertions. And now in this recap part, I would simply like to simulate what happens in the Microtask Queue. So for that, I'm going to need the implementation again. Okay, let's take only this part here. So this will be part of the implementation. Okay, I hope you can see very easily what's going on here. Okay, so first of all, we are going to iterate through all of these given promises. But because foo and bar are resolved, the Microtask Queue will have these two values, foo and bar. Now, after running all timers here, what happens is that vtest will take the timers, the fake timers, because we are simulating time in testing. It will take the fake timers and run the callbacks that they have scheduled. In this case, it will invoke the callback that corresponds to hello, which will resolve the hello promise. So this is why, and once again, this happens in the current tick when the call stack is not empty. So this is the phase where microtasks will be scheduled. So at this point, when running all timers, hello will be resolved because it has a lower timeout or a smaller timeout, and we add hello here to the Microtask Queue. Then by will be resolved due to the same reasoning that there is a timeout that has to be run, and it will happen after 2 seconds, and as a result the promise that corresponds to by will be resolved, and that's why we have by here in the Microtask Queue. Now this promise that all, under the hood, it has a .then function, or it will add a .then to my promise that all. However, this won't be added yet to the Microtask Queue because it hasn't resolved yet. All of these promises, or all of these callbacks that we see here in the Microtask Queue are here because the promises have been resolved. So when the call stack becomes empty, the Microtask Queue will be run at the end of this tick, of this event loop iteration, in other words. So it will run foo, which what happens is it will go through this entire logic. It will increase the counter, values will contain foo, it will check this, it won't be successful, and so on. Then it will go with bar, counter is 2, same thing as bar. Now when hello comes here, values will have 3 values, and this check will be successful because, and once again, this is a bug, and we plan to solve it. Counter will be 3, and the promises promises count -1 will also be 3, which means this promise will resolve. And the way that Microtask Queue runs is that it will run the queue exhaustively, which means that when a task in the Microtask Queue will schedule another promise that is being resolved now, to my understanding, it will add its callback into the queue, once again, if that promise resolves. So in this case, the promise that corresponds to my promise that all will be resolved. So let's also highlight that those have been taken away. Let's say like this. Now we are at hello, and as a result we will resolve the promise, and we will add expect callback into the Microtask queue. Okay, after hello has run its callback, what happens next is the callback that corresponds to buy. And when that happens, it will once again run to the logic provided to the callback, but notice that the problem we have here is that we are adding once again two values, and that's why values will have 4 values. Next, after this callback is run, let's also highlight that. Okay, now we have expect callback, which is once again the callback that has the assertions after this promise here will resolve. This is why expect callback will have 4 values. So this was a small recap. Now let's see how I would solve this. Okay, so the problem is that we are not keeping track of the initial order in which promises were given. We basically return the promises in the order in which they have been resolved. So for that, I'm going to change the implementation of this. Let's say array from, and we're going to provide the length, which is promises count, and then we are also going to need the indices of the promises. So I'm going to say promise index in, say p is the promises that promise index, and then when this resolves, we're going to add to the values array based on the index. So we have promises index is the value, such that now we can keep track of the order in which the promises have been provided initially. So this is what we are achieving with this line here. Okay, I think this should be it. We're not going to solve this bug here because I would like to explore how we could observe that from the test. But if we now run this test, we should be successful now, and we are. And again, we made some progress because we have added this line here. So I would say that at this point the test isn't as misleading as it was initially, but what I'm wondering now is how we could detect such problems like this one, which is a very big problem. So the test now, it is still a bit misleading, but not as misleading as it was in the beginning. For that, I'm going to have to think of a solution. I would have thought maybe instead of doing that, I could, for instance, advance timers by time, and then we could do like this. But notice what happens when I do that. So at this point, I'm only advancing time by 1.5 seconds, and if I run the test, I see a problem because buy hasn't resolved yet, but my promise that all has resolved. However, I still don't know how I could do something like this. Maybe wait for maybe or flush Microtask Queue, then maybe assert that my promise all has, maybe I should write it like that, and then assert that my promise all has not resolved. Well, I will still have to things to think this through, but I think we made some progress. We understood some things, and yeah, I guess in the next video I will try to come with a solution, because I still believe that by writing the test in the proper way, we could foresee bugs that we might have in the implementation. But as we've seen through these three videos until now, it is very important to know your tools and know how those work, because otherwise you might be ending in misleading situations which can only provide chaos. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.